Thousands dead, billions lost as the full human and economic toll of the conflict comes into focus. 15 weeks of war, $132 billion later, the financial scars continue to spread far beyond the region. Inside Trump's Hormuz gamble that rattled energy markets and shook the global economy. Iran conflict lasted months, but its economic aftershocks could be felt for years to come. The U.S. Iran war lasted just over 15 weeks, but the human and economic toll escalated rapidly as fighting spread across multiple fronts. While the fighting eased in recent weeks, the full scale of the war's damage has continued to come into sharper focus. An estimate by NYT highlighted how the conflict left thousands dead and imposed costs extending far beyond the battlefield. Iran. About 3,500 people were reportedly killed as the country absorbed the brunt of military operations during the war. Lebanon. About 3,700 people were reportedly killed as fighting and cross-border hostilities intensified throughout the conflict. Israel. 26 people were reported killed during attacks linked to the regional confrontation. U.S. military. 13 American service members were reported killed during operations connected to the conflict. Thousands more were reportedly injured across the region, placing additional strain on medical and emergency services. Total economic cost. The overall financial impact of the war was estimated at approximately $132 billion. Direct military costs. Around $29 billion was reportedly spent on combat operations, deployments, and wartime requirements. Base repair costs. The expense of restoring damaged military facilities has not yet been fully determined. Munitions replacement costs. Expenditures continue to rise as depleted missile and weapons stockpiles are replenished. Energy and commodity price shocks formed a significant part of the broader economic damage caused by the conflict. Iran's economy was already under pressure before the war, but conditions worsened considerably as the conflict unfolded. Prices for food and essential goods surged as military operations disrupted trade, transport, and daily economic activity. Iranian Red Crescent officials said hundreds of schools and healthcare facilities were damaged or destroyed during the fighting. The scale of destruction added further pressure on an economy that was already struggling under multiple challenges. The war sent energy markets into turmoil as attacks and military actions threatened vital international shipping routes. The Iranian and U.S. blockade of Hormuz disrupted oil flows through one of the world's most important maritime choke points. Additional U.S. fuel costs were estimated at roughly $60 billion as energy markets reacted to the crisis. The average household impact in the United States was estimated at approximately $460 during the disruption. Gasoline prices reportedly climbed from $2.98 to around $4 per gallon as supplies tightened. Crude oil prices peaked at about $120 per barrel amid fears of prolonged supply disruptions. Global shipping and transport costs also increased as insurers and carriers adjusted to heightened risks. The economic impact extended beyond energy markets and spread through global manufacturing and supply chains. Disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz affected trade in critical commodities used across numerous industries worldwide. Fertilizer markets were hit by higher sulfur costs, raising concerns for agricultural production and food supplies. Experts warned the fallout could include higher food prices, weaker growth, and broader inflationary pressures. As a 60-day negotiation period began, the war's financial aftershocks continued to ripple through the global economy. The Pentagon reportedly told lawmakers it needs roughly $80 billion to cover costs linked to the Iran war as well as other military expenses, according to a Wall Street Journal report. Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg is said to have discussed the funding requirement during a series of calls with members of Congress. The Pentagon reportedly warned that several military services could face budget shortfalls as early as this summer without additional funding. According to the Wall Street Journal, a new wartime spending request could be submitted to Congress within the coming days. A Pentagon official told Reuters in April that the conflict with Iran had already cost the United States about $25 billion at that stage. The overall financial burden of the war has remained a subject of intense debate and disagreement on Capitol Hill, Reuters previously reported. An earlier proposal seeking around $200 billion in war-related funding reportedly encountered significant resistance from lawmakers. White House Budget Director Russell Vought said in April that the administration still did not have a final estimate for the total cost of the conflict. Vought made those remarks while defending President Donald Trump's proposed $1.5 trillion military budget before lawmakers. The funding debate comes as members of Congress face growing voter concerns over inflation and government spending ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. President Donald Trump has rejected claims that the Iran war exposed limits to America's ability to project power on the global stage. In an interview with the Axios show, Trump argued that the conflict ultimately demonstrated U.S. strength rather than weakness. Asked what the war taught him about the limits of his authority, the president responded with a blunt message: "There are no limits." Trump said he was not humbled by the conflict, even though the fighting ended with a memorandum of understanding rather than total victory. The president entered the war demanding Iran's unconditional surrender, but ultimately agreed to a more limited diplomatic framework aimed at ending hostilities. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but there are no limits. We defeated them totally militarily, and the MOU is probably unconditional surrender. Who else could have done a blockade like that? I did a naval blockade where not one ship was able to get through. Some tried. It didn't last very long. The only way I can get tougher is if I go in there for another 2 or 3 weeks and continue to bomb the hell out of them." Right. But what does that get us? The Strait of Hormuz will not be open. We wouldn't have oil for months. As long as you're dropping bombs, that thing is automatically closed. This is the kind of thing that could cause a worldwide depression. Unquote. Despite his tough rhetoric, President Trump acknowledged that continuing the war would have carried significant risks for the United States and the global economy. The president said the only way to become tougher would have been to extend the bombing campaign against Iran. Trump questioned what such a strategy would achieve beyond prolonging the conflict and increasing instability across the region. He warned that a longer war could have kept the Strait of Hormuz closed to commercial shipping for an extended period. According to Trump, as long as bombs were falling, normal maritime traffic through the strategic waterway would have remained impossible. Trump warned that a prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz could have severely disrupted global energy supplies and trade. The U.S. president said the world could have faced months without normal oil flows through the strategic waterway. Trump argued that the risk of a global economic depression was a major factor behind his decision-making during the conflict. Sources familiar with the president's thinking said he was increasingly concerned about declining global petroleum reserves and a potential oil shock.
We run out of reserves in about 4 weeks. You know, there are reserves all over the world, and we would really run out, and there'll be a time when you wouldn't be able to get it. And you want to see bedlam? So for all those so-called geniuses that want to show me how smart they are, ask them why didn't they blow up General Soleimani? Ask that of the general and a couple of other people that I like very much, but boy, are they wrong.